So the next topic is the Java's inbuilt exceptions. Java exceptions are basically categorized into two categories. One is checked exceptions, the other one is the unchecked exceptions. So the difference between these two is that's written on this slide. In case of unchecked exception, compiler doesn't check to see if the method handles or throws the exception. So at the time of the compilation, if the Java doesn't check whether the method handles or throws the exception, then those exceptions are called unchecked exceptions. While in case of checked exceptions, Java check at the time of the compilation whether the method generate the exception or not, whether it is handling the exception itself or not. So those kind of exceptions are called checked exceptions. So here is the list of unchecked exception that are supported by the Java, right? So as in case of arithmetic exception, if arithmetic exception is there and you are not handling it, the Java will not complain, as I have shown you in the very first example, where we discussed that if the expression is of the form C is equal to A by B and B is 0, if you don't write that code in the try catch block, the Java will not complain about that. So those are the that is the kind of unchecked exception. So the next the list of exceptions are given over here. We just discussed two, right? So in the remaining classes, we'll try to use most of the exceptions that are there. Then the second category of exceptions is checked exceptions, and these are of the type shown over here: class not found exception, clone not supported exception. So and some more are there. So these are the checked exceptions. So if your program is throwing one of these exception, and if the compiler notices that the method, if the one of the method is throwing any one of these exception, then it will check that at the time of compilation. So the next topic is creating your own exception subclasses. So as we discussed yesterday, in case of Java, there are some inbuilt exceptions, and if you want to create your own exception, then you can do that also. But to design your own exception, you have to extend the exception class, and after that, whatever you want, you can implement that in the user defined class. So I have shown one example for that over here in the coming slides, how you can create your own exception class. Just the process is very simple. You have to just create a subclass of exception class and then create the object of that to through the exception. So this will discuss in the coming slides with one example. So basically, in the exception class has 4 public constructor. Out of those, I have out of those 4, I have shown 2 over here. One is the constructor that is not parameterized. The other is the constructor with parameters. So if you want to assign any description to the exception, then you can use the second constructor through your subclass. And if you don't want to assign any description to the exception object, then you can use the constructor without any parameter. So this we have used in this class, this simple example. So here in this case, we are creating one class and the class name is myException, and it is extending the exception class. So this is the rule. If you want to create your own exception, you have to extend the exception class or inherit the exception class. In this class, myException, there is a one private instance variable detail. It's of type integer, and one method that is a constructor is also there, and this constructor is parameterized. It receives one parameter and assigns the value to the detail instance variable of the class. So from and one more method is there that we are overriding, that is toString. It's there in the exception class. So we are basically overriding this method, and we want to print the exception in our own way. So how we want to print the exception result is, first we want to print myException, and then within the square bracket we want to print the exception number that we will pass at the creation of the object of this class. So this is the class, and now in our here what we are doing, this is another class, exception demo, and in this class there is one method compute, and that throws this exception, myException, right? And we discussed in the previous class that we use throws if the method is not handling the exception itself. So here we are throwing the exception in the method, but this method is not handling the exception itself. So the program that will call this method will have to handle the exception. So here in main, we are calling this compute method. In over here, we are calling the compute. So these two method, compute and main, are in the same class, exception demo class. So that's why we have attached this static keyword with this method. So this is static method because main will be able to call a method if it is static from the same class. So here we are calling compute with one, so that will be passed to this method in variable a, and then the body of the compute method will execute and we will get this result called compute, and the value of a will be printed, that is 1. After that we'll check if a is greater than 10. So because the value of a is not greater than 10, so the throw statement will be skipped, and the next result that you will get on your screen is the output of this line, that is normal exit. So when you will call compute with 1, you will get two outputs called compute 1 and normal exit. These will be the two results. Then with the second line in the try block, we are calling the compute again. So this time 20 will be passed on to the A, and then it will print called compute 20. This time this if condition will evaluate to true, so 20 greater than 10 will evaluate to true, and so this will throw the exception. So how you can throw the exception yourself, that we discussed yesterday. First you have to write the throw keyword and the object of the exception class. So this class is basically myException. It is inherited from exception class. So we have created a user defined exception, and the object of that class will be created. And when the object will be created, constructor will be called, as we discussed earlier. So here my exception class constructor will be called with the value of a. So this 20 will be passed to this constructor, and this will assign 20 to the detail of the object, a detail member of the object that will be created. So this object will be thrown because this method is not handling the exception. That's why we have written over here throws my exception, because it throws the exception of type my exception. That will be handled by the try block where we call this method. So there is a matching catch block that will get executed, and the object you just created over here will be passed on to the parameter A. So E will refer to the my exception class object, and then the body of the catch will be executed and you will get caught. And after that we are printing A. So whenever we print the object of any class, a toString method of that class gets executed, and we have overloaded the toString method so that this will get executed, and this will give you result my exception, and the value of detail is 20 for the object. So you will get this result my exception 20 in square bracket, and the total result will be caught my exception 20 in square bracket. So this will be the result that you will get over here. So this is how you can create a user defined exception. So I repeat the main points. Whenever you want to create your own exception, you have to extend the exception class. This is the important point, right? And the second is you have to, because you are creating the user defined class, you have to throw the exception using some business logic. So here we are using a simple business logic. When the value of a is greater than 10, then we should throw the exception. So if you are, I am just recalling another example. If you want to find out roots of the quadratic equation, in that case, if the discriminant is less than 0, if the discriminant is negative, that is b square minus 4ac is negative, and that means the roots are imaginary. In that case, you want to throw the exception. So there you can use the business logic. If b square minus 4ac is less than 0, then we can throw the exception. The other case is if you want to find the area of the triangle and from the 3 sides, and the condition is if the sum of any 2 sides is greater than the third side, then only the valid triangle is formed. And if this condition is not true, if the sum of any 2 sides is not greater than the third side, that means that those 3 lengths are not forming a valid triangle, and you can throw the user defined exception in that case also. So in such scenarios, you can through the user defined exception. It depends what kind of program you are implementing. Based on that, the exceptions can be used. So the next topic about exceptions is chained exception. So in case of chained exception, one exception can be attached with another, because if the exception is occurring, the reason of the exception can be there. For example, if your program is throwing the arithmetic exception, the actual reason for that might be the program was unable to read the data from the input output file. So that is the reason behind that. So here there is a chain between the exception. The actual exception is arithmetic exception, but the reason behind this is their method was unable to read the data from the input file. or there was some problem reading the input file. So the reason behind the arithmetic exception is the input output error also. So chained exceptions are basically used when you want to attach the reason of happening the exception with the exception itself. So this concept we are going to discuss with the one problem. So in case of the chained exceptions, we can use the two constructors of the throwable class, because from the throwable class the exception class is inherited. So this constructor can be called through the super keyword. So there are two constructors. One is throwable cause exception, the reason of the exception to which the current exception is happening. For example, there is arithmetic exception, but it is due to the input output exception. The cause of the arithmetic exception is input output exception, so that you can attach. So with that one exception you can attach the exception that is the reason of the actual exception. Then the second constructor is you can assign the reason as well as give some description to the exception. So this first parameter over here, MSG, is the description of the exception. So in the chained exceptions, the throwable class basically has two methods. One is called getCause. If you want to retrieve the cause of the exception, in that case we can call it. And the second is init cause. So this basically init cause method associate the cause of the exception by the call of this method. So this, how we can set the cause of the exception with this method, we are going to discuss that with this example. So here there is an example of the chained exception. So in this example we have one chain exception demo class, and in this we have one static method demo procedure. In the demo procedure, we are creating the object of null pointer exception class, and we are assigning description to that, and the description is top layer. So this will be passed on to null pointer exception, and null pointer exception will in fact call the exception class constructor. And then with this line we are creating the object over here, then we are attaching one reason of this exception, null pointer exception. So how you can attach the cause exception? For that you will call the init cause with the exception object and pass the object that is the reason of the exception. So reason of the exception is let's say arithmetic exception. So here we are creating the object of the arithmetic exception, and this is the cause of the null pointer exception. So the actual exception that will occur is null pointer exception, but the reason behind the occurrence of null pointer exception is the arithmetic exception. So we have attached the reason arithmetic exception with the null pointer exception. And how you can attach the reason exception, that is through the call of init cause method. So these are the important, this is the important point. The remaining step is the same. We are creating the exception object here, and we created the exception object many times. We discussed it. Assigning the reason to an exception, for that you can use init cause, and then we are throwing the exception. using the through through E statement. So through is the keyword, and we are throwing the object E. And this we are calling in the main. So we are calling the demo procedure over here. So we have kept demo procedure in try catch. So when this will throw the exception, cause will throw the exception. So in that case, the matching catch block will get executed, and the matching catch block is null pointer exception, and this will get executed, and it will receive the object that is thrown. So when the catch block will get executed, what you will get is caught, then the E, right? If you have implemented toString, then this E will invoke toString and you will get the corresponding result. Otherwise, the default result will get displayed. And after that, we are displaying the actual reason of the expression through the second line. Original cause of the exception is, and how you can get the cause is first write the object name and then call the get cause method, and the get cause method will give you the reason of that. And the reason of that is the exception of arithmetic exception. So you will get the reason is arithmetic exception. So this is all about exception handling. If there is any doubt, you can ask. Otherwise, we are going to start the next. Basically, Java supports two types of strings. One is called immutable strings, and the second category is mutable strings. So immutable strings are the strings that cannot be changed. Once you initialize the string object with some value, then that object value cannot be modified. So those kinds of strings are called immutable strings. If a string can be modified after the initial assignment, yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, Priyanka speaking. Sir, here we have included the package string. So we don't need to import. We have to just include the package string like this way whenever we are doing any string operation or string programming.
Okay. Yes, we don't need to import any package for string handling, right? So let me start
Yes, sir.
the discussion, then I will explain what is required, what is not required, fine? Because I haven't started explaining yet, so I will give you the chance to ask the questions, fine? Let me start.
Okay, sir.
Then we will discuss what is there.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So we were discussing that the Java supports two kinds of strings, mutable and immutable. In case of mutable strings, if you create the string object, later on during the execution of the program, you can change the object values or modify the object values. So if you can modify the string object, then that kind of string is called mutable. If the string object values cannot be changed, then those kinds of strings are called immutable strings. So Java has three classes for mutable and immutable string handling. The first category that we are going to discuss is immutable strings, the strings object that cannot be changed, right? So for this, Java has one class, inbuilt class, and that class name is string class. right? So string class is basically, it is in package java.lang, in java.lang package, this class is there. So because java.lang is imported implicitly, so you don't have to import it, right? So this is the first step. So in any program, you can just use the string class. But on the screen, what I am sharing with you, I am using the package. So I think this might be the doubt of one of you. The reason behind this is I am creating the user defined package. As we discussed in the package chapter, that whenever you create the package, the classes that you create will put into that folder in the drive. So the only reason of using this package command is I want to keep all my 24 or 25 programs in the same folder, in the folder named string. So I named it string. So it created one folder over there in the drive. I'm going to show you that also, because one of your classmates has asked one doubt. So the reason behind creating this string package is just I want to keep all my string related program in one folder. This is the only reason. That's why I have created the package over here, and I'm going to show you that package in my drive. So here is the package program files, and then I have to go to, I think in the Java, no, you have to go to first users directory, because I saved it there, users, then the directory is under my name. This is the, for you I'm showing you this. I have created one package string and all my programs are there. That is the only reason. 20 programs are there. So this is a user defined package, so it doesn't have any relation with the string class, right, that we are using over here. So this is the only, I think, doubt you were asking about. So I will give you the chance to ask the doubts again, but let me explain some programs, then you will be given the chance. So I have created the user defined package, its name is string, just to keep all the programs in one location. Then the very first string class method we are going to discuss is this method, characters. It's basically a constructor and of string class, and to this constructor you can pass array of characters, and through passing it array of character we can build a string class object. So here I have, in the very first line, I have created a character type array with 3 elements, right? And the name of the character type array is chars. Then we are creating the object of the string class using this new string, and we are passing one array to the string class. So the constructor that I have shown over here will get called, and that will create a string object out of the character type array, and that object will be referred by the variable s of type string. So this is reference variable. So when you will print as, what you will get on the screen, you will get ABC, because if you combine these 3 characters, the string that will be created is ABC. So string is what? It's just a collection of characters that you that are in the double quote. So this is the example of string that I have written over here. Or this is also the example of a string literal. this is a table. So this is another string example. So it will concatenate all characters, this string class object, concatenate the elements of the character type array, and will build one string out of that. And that string type object will get references, and in the next line we are printing that reference, and when you will print that reference, the string will get printed on your screen. So we are getting ABC over here. So this is the first point, that this character string class supports one constructor that receives array of characters and build one string out of that. This is the second program. So again, you will notice that in all the program I'm using the package string because the reason is same. I want to keep all those programs in one location. This is the second constructor that is supported by the string class. So to this constructor, you have to pass character type array and two more parameters, because in this case I don't want to build the string object from all the characters of the array. I want to build string from, let's say, from these three characters or from these four characters. From the portion of the character type array, I want to build a string object. So this will give you this argument. Second will pass the starting index of the array, and this is the number of characters. For example, if I want to build a string out of these four characters that I have highlighted over there. So the start index of B is 1, because as you know the array index starts from 0. So this is 1, start index is 1, and the number of characters are 4. So you have to write over here 1, 4. So this will build a string from this character type array using the 4 characters and starting from location number 1. So if you print S, you will get a 4 character string BCDE. Right? I hope you get it right. So this is the second constructor that is supported by the string class. Then the third problem. Now in this we have another constructor that is supported by the string class, and that is you can build a string from another string object. So to do this, you have to call the constructor of the string class with another string as a parameter. So we are using a character type array. We are building a string from that character type array using this statement that we discussed in the earlier programs. Then this is the new step, building a string from another string. So we are calling the constructor of the string class with the new string and passing another string to it. So we are passing S1, that is the string Java. So this will build another string out of that. So you will get S2. After that we are printing S1 and S2. So you will get the two same strings Java, right? So this basically is creating a copy of the string, right? So this is creating a copy. If you want to create the copy of the string, you have to use this statement. So this is the third problem, and the next one is, after that we have another constructor that is supported by this string class, and that is, let me check whether this is working. I think we have lost the connection. No, it's there. It's there. So so here is the third next problem, and in this program we are going to discuss the other constructor that is supported by a string class, and that is if you pass a byte type array to the string class, and then you can build a string out of that also. And here we are created a byte type array, and in this byte type array we have 6 elements starting from 65 and so on up to 70. If you create a string out of this byte type array, so you have to use new string and pass the byte type array as a parameter to the string class constructor. So this will build the string out of that, because the value of capital A is 65 and that of B is 66. So when you will build a string out of that, you will get A, B, C, D, E, F. So A, B, C, D, E, F will be generated from that byte type array, and that we are assigning to S1. So S1 object is basically referring to a string A, B, C, D, E that we are printing over here. And the next constructor that is supported is you can build a string out of some part of the byte type array. Let's say from these 4 characters we want to build a string. So again, just like the character type array, you have to specify the start index and the number of characters. So if you want to build the string from here, then the starting index will be 1 and the number of characters will be 4. But in this example I am using 2 and 3, so it will start from here and the number of characters will be 3. So CDE you will get on the screen because that will be assigned to S2, and the next line is printing S2. So let's check the result of this. So we are getting A, B, C, D, E, F, and then the CDE as the result of the next statement. So the next program is the length method. This is the method that is supported by the string class, and if you call it with the string object, it will give you the length of the string. For example, in this case we are building a string from a character type array, and then we are finding the length of it using s.length. So this will give you the result 3, because the length of s is 3, so you are getting 3 over here. The next problem is on you can build the string using this expression also, right? So you directly pass a string literal or assign a string literal to s2, so the object will be created, and then we are printing s2, so you will get abc. And even you can call the methods of the string class on the string literal directly, that is shown over here. So abc is a string literal, and you are invoking the length function with that. So this can also be done. And if I change the value of this, so you will get the result accordingly. So now the number of characters are 8, including space. So the next problem on this is we are using the string concatenation over here in this program. So for that you need to use the plus sign. So I am using plus sign here to concatenate the string. So this is one string, it will get concatenated with this and this and this, right? And then we are printing the long string to to check whether the plus has concatenated the strings or not. So we are getting a complete string in one line. So this is also possible. Next problem is get characters. If you want to retrieve characters from a string, so this is a string object. As we have initialized it with this string. This is a demo of the character method. Then we want to retrieve some part of this string. Let's say this string I want to retrieve, or this part I want to retrieve. So for that, you have to mention first the source start and the source end. If I want to retrieve demo, let's say the start index of this is, if we count from the t is at index number 0, then h is 1, I is 2, s is 3, space is 4, I is 5, s is 6, space is 7, a is 8, space is 9, and d is 10. So 10 is the index of demo. So you will give start index 10, right? End index is, this is 11, 12, 13, 14. So you have to give 14. So it will give you the end index minus 1 up to the string starting from start index till end index minus 1. So we have given 14. So 14 minus 1 is 13. So you will get the result from 10th index to 13th index. We want to store this string in some character type array. So you have to pass the name of that character type array where you want to store the result, and then the position where you want to store the result in the target. So I'm going to show you this in this example. So we have buffer of array, character type array of size and minus start. So and is 14, start is 10. So 14 minus 10 is 4. So this is a 4 element array buffer, and I want to store 4 characters in it, where I will copy this demo starting from the buffer 0. So this position is 0. So that means starting from the 0th position, I want to store a string in buffer array. So this is the reason of using this. So next line is printing the buff. So you will get the result demo. So how you will call? You will call it with the s, the string on which you want to perform the operation. Then get characters, starting index. So the starting index is 10. So we want to search in as starting from index number 10, and index is 14. So 14 minus 1, you will get 4 characters. Where you want to store the result, that character type array name, and in that character type array, at which location you want to start copying the desired substring. That is this location, start location. So I hope you get it right. If there is any doubt, you can unmute yourself and ask your doubts. Then we will discuss rest of the problems. If there is any doubt, you can ask the doubts. Okay, somebody is saying I'm unable to mute myself. So unmute yourself right now.
Sir,
One
we
of you is
require
saying
any.
yes, yes. Rishu, are you able to unmute yourself now? I have unmuted you all. You can unmute yourself. Yes, unmute yourself. Rishu, you are able to unmute yourself. You can ask that out because you have written in the chat box that you are unable to unmute.
Hello.
You are
Hello.
audible. So, yes, Rishu, your voice is clear to me. Yes, you can speak. Okay, there might be some network issue at your end, Rishu, and so from my end, you all have privilege to unmute yourself. Okay. From my side, it's showing that you are able to unmute yourself. I don't know what is the issue at your end. Okay, no problem. So if anybody has any doubt except Rishu because he is not able to unmute herself, I think rest of the all are able to because Shabnam has just unmuted herself. Okay, so I'm going to discuss the next problem because nobody is asking any doubt. Okay, then the next problem is so in this problem we are going to discuss another method of string class, that is two character array. If you want to convert a string to a character array, then you can use this. So in this program we have one string type object S that is initialized with the string literal. This is a demo program. Then on this string type object S, we are calling the method to character array. So this will return a character type array. So this string, this is the demo program, will get converted into character type array buff. So you can then retrieve the elements of the buff array one by one. So for that we are using for each loop. So as we discussed earlier, in this case the ch will take one value at a time from buff type character array. So first it will get t from the buff and that t will get printed. After that with the next iteration the ch variable will take value h, then h will get printed and so on. So if I change the string to just program, so your program will now print character by character all the elements of the string. Let's look at the output. So this is the output of the program, program and dot. So we have converted the string into a character type array. So this is the benefit of using this. Then the next is if you want to remove the space in the beginning of a string literal or at the end. For example, in this program we have some space before the hello word and some space after the hello word, right? And we want to remove this space. So for that you can use this trim function. So the trim, what the trim will do, it will remove the leading and the trailing white spaces from the string. So if I use two lines for this, one is to initialize the object and with other I am calling this trim function. So s dot trim you can call with that, and if I print the result of this method for using system.out.println method, so in that case if I put the trim here inside the parenthesis, so you will just get the word hello world, right? There will not be spaces before or after the string. So if I print it before trimming, let's check what you will get in that case. So that I'm going to show you over here. This is the case. So let us check it. So now see, in the first case we are getting hello world and there is a space because we printed it before removing the space, and then after we trimmed the spaces from the string and then printed it using that. So this is the case with the trim method. So the next function related to the string is this one. This is the next method. We discussed this one, 11, then 12, string 12. Let me open that. Let me open that from the library. So string 12. So this is the case. Now we are we have two methods that we are going to discuss through this program. One is equals, other is equals ignore case. So in this program we have used some string type objects, and the S1 string type object is initialized with the word hello, S2 is initialized with the same word hello, S3 is initialized with goodbye, and S4 is initialized with hello, but this is all in capital. So this equals method that we are using over here, calling over here, basically compares the contents of the two string objects. If they are exactly the same, then it returns true. If the strings are not same, then it returns false. So because this S1 and S2 are exactly the same, so it will give you the answer true in the first case. Then we are comparing S1 equals S3 because S3 and S1 are two different strings, so this will return false. The next line, S1 equals S4, because again there is a case difference. One is having some characters in lowercase as well, but the string S4 has all capital letters. So these are two different strings. These will be treated as two different strings by the Java. So this will give you the false result. Then we are using equals ignore case. So this is basically compare the two strings, but this method ignore the case. So if you ignore the case, S1 and S4 are the two equal strings, and you will get here equal. S1 equal ignore case equal to 4 is true. So this will be the case. So it's very easy to understand. Displaying the result over here. If you have some doubt, I'm going to unmute you all again. If you have some doubt till now, you can ask the question. Yes, I have unmuted you all. You can unmute yourself now and ask the questions. Okay. So nobody is asking any doubt. That means there will not be any doubt. Okay. Right. Very good. So the next problem is problem number 13. Here it goes. So before this, I am going to write one code for you, and you all are supposed to answer that. I'm going to create a new class. 21. I'm going to name it 22, and this is Java. And we are going to create it. This type name is empty. Okay, where I typed. This should be 20 string because this is a package name. And here I should write 22. The type already exists. 23, 24. So we are going to create a new program over here. This is string 24th program on strings. So in this we have two string objects. One is S1, its value is hello, and the other is string type s2. Its value is also hello. If I, let's say, print system dot out dot println s1 equal s2, what should be the result? You guess the result and give your answer in the chat window, and then we will discuss it. Write your output in the chat window. So after 1 minute, we are going to discuss the output of this, right? So you have 1 minute only to think about the answer of the question, answer of the program that I have written over here. Okay, so time is our. So some has written output. Rishabh has written false. Shabnam Chaudhary, it's true. Rishabh Sharma, it's false. It will be giving true. Kanopriya has written true. Humana is saying it's false because we are comparing. Humana is false. Shanu is saying true. Puneet Baba is saying true. Hasija, Tanya Hasija has written false. So let's check the output first, and then we will discuss why we are getting this result. Right? Neha Sharma has written false. Deepak, Neha Sharma has written true, sorry. Deepak has written false. So here goes the result. We are getting true in this case, right? So why we are getting true? So we are basically creating two strings, and in these two strings they are referring to the same value. referring to the same string. Okay. The reason behind this is the S1 and S2 are referring to the same object in the memory. That's why you are getting the same answer, true answer. This is the reason, because we discussed this in Python as well. Yes. Let's check it with another code, the same problem. This time we are going to use this thing, new string, and from this word we are building a hello, and I'm using over here again the same statement to build another string. Now let's check it. This time we are getting the result false. I think now you will get it right, because now the value is same. Hello word is same, the value is same, but we are creating object with new. So this will create an object, will assign reference to S1. Then another object will be created, and that will be assigned reference to S2. And here in this case, if you are comparing S1, S2 now, because S1 and S2 are referring to two different objects. So when S1 and S2 are referring to two different objects, two different references, then if you equate S1 is equal to S2, that means you are equating the references. So references are not same because they are referring to two different objects. So now we are getting the false result. But if you just assign the value, so in that case, Java will allocate some space for hello on the heap memory, and when you will again assign hello to the S2, because Java will have this string in the heap memory, then the same reference of the memory will be given to S2 as well. So if you are just assigning value hello to S1 and S2, in that case, because S1 and S2 will be referring to the same object in the memory, in that case you will get S1 is equal to S2. That means they are referring to the same object. And if you create the object explicitly using the new keyword, in that case, because the S1 and S2 are referring to two different objects, you will get the result false. So I think now it's clear to you. If it is not clear till now, I'm going to unmute you and you can ask the doubts about this problem. Any doubt you can ask about this? From my side, I have explained the reason why you are getting true in the first case and false in the second case. If somebody still has some doubt, he or she can unmute and ask the doubt. Okay. So almost all are saying that now it is clear. So let's go to the next problem. Problem number 13. I think we have already discussed. I'm going to check it again whether we have discussed the 12th problem or not. Yes, we have discussed it. Now let's go to the problem number 13. So in this problem, we want to compare a part of a string with another string. So for that, you have to use a string function, reason matches. This is the name of the function method that is available in the string class. I'm going to explain it with the example, then we will discuss the parameters that have mentioned over here in the command line. So we have one string s1 and it is initialized with this line. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. And the second string is initialized with the word lovely. And if you want to match a substring of s1 with s2, I want to match this part of s1 with s2, right? So whether a part of a string s1 matches with the s2 or not. For that, you can use reason matches. So here, if I change it, the second string to this one, lovely, L is small over here. So I'm calling the function s1 dot region matches. So s1 is the source string. We want to start matching from the 14th index number. So first is the start index from where you want to start matching. So this L is at location 14 if you count from here 0, 1, 2, 3, and this will come at location number 14. So L is at location 14 in S1. So from where you want to start the matching. We want to match the character starting from the index 14 or string starting from index 14 with the string s2. So in s2 we have lovely, right? Then the starting index of second string. Starting index of second string is 0. We want to start from the 0 index. If you want to start from, let's say, 2 index number, you can do that also. So we want to start from 0 index, and the number of characters we want to match is 4. So only 4 characters will be matched. So these 4 characters and these 4 characters will be matched. If the 4 are same, we will get the result true. So I'm going to make it capital L. Now these are not matching exactly, but first 4 character matches. So we should get the answer true. So this should give the reason matches true. So its return type is Boolean, as mentioned over here in the prototype over here. So it will return Boolean value. Then the next we are calling the reason matches again. But this time we are using the second method, reason matches method, because reason matches is overloaded in the string class. So there are 2 reason matches methods in string class. One with the Boolean type first variable. In this case, if you write true, then it will ignore the case, and if you write false, then the match will be case sensitive match. So here, because I have kept it true, that means it will be a match. Match will be of case insensitive type. So why? Because this lovely and this lovely are two different words. So I have written 6 over here. So all the 6 characters I want to match with this, starting from 0. I want to ignore the case as well. That's why it's true. So this means now they will match if you ignore the case. But the second is false, and in that case, the ignore case is false. That means the case sensitive match will be performed, and in that case, because these two are not matching, lovely and lovely, so you will get the result false. So let's check it. So we are getting these results over here. Both are giving us the result true. Let me check it again. One of the results should be false. So here it is 4. It should be 6. Then only you will get the false result. See here, look at this. Now we are getting the false result because this number of characters are 6 now, and this first parameter is false. We are not ignoring the case. So this is the answer of this. So I think it's clear to you. So you are supposed to write a program yourself where you will check the number of times a word occurs in a given sentence. So for example, over here, if I want to check how many times a particular word occur, let's say if I extend it to another thing, but I have promised to keep and miles to go before I sleep. So these are the lines. So if I want to find let's say and from this complete string, so and is occurring, let's say here one time, and here it is occurring second time. So you are supposed to count how many times the string occurs in a given string. For that, you can write a program yourself to practice these string functions. I'm switching to the program number 14. In this, we have another functions, and I have added the functions to the end of this reason matrix. This is what we have already discussed. I'm going to remove it from here, and we are going to discuss two functions. One is starts with, other is ends with. This I'm going to remove because this is not related to that. So we have now S1 string, the woods are lovely, dark and deep. S2 is lovely, S3 is the, S4 is deep. So if you want to find out whether a particular string starts with a particular word or not, then you can use the starts with, because this is the sentence, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, with which we are calling the starts with method, and we want to check whether this sentence S1 starts with S3 or not, starts with the or not. So the is there, so that means it will return true because the string is starting with the. And if I keep something else over here, then that is not matching with the word in the beginning, then it will give the false. Similarly, you can perform the search that the particular sentence is ending with the particular word or not. Then you can use the ends with. So I want to test whether this string S1 is ending with the deep or not. So if it is ending with deep, then it will return true, right? So I have removed that full stop over here. So it's ending with deep. And then we are checking S1 starts with S2 14. So starting from 14th letter, whether the S1 is matching with S2 or not. So starting with 14th letter, this one is the 14th letter. Here is the lovely, and it matches with the lovely. So this will give you true. So this starts with you can mention the position from where you want to start matching the S2 string with the S1 string. So here is the result. If you have any doubt regarding these 2-3 problems, I'm going to unmute you all. You can ask your doubts.